All right, here we go. Starting up, get everything activated. Anybody watching the recording afterwards, you could probably skip the first maybe minute or so, but I'm not going to be delaying too much because I'm not going to be waiting around forever. Since this is probably only good, this is definitely going to be less than half an hour this time. It's not that much that I would really put on. Okay, that's all synced up. That I would really put on the plate together is like or has actually happened. So I'll take one sip of water and give a few seconds for people to show up. But after that, I'm just going to go right into it. I don't think this would even show anybody until after the first 2 minutes, or no, it does. But anyways, uh, regardless of whether anyone is or isn't actually here, starting with the first thing in the title. Oh, never mind, we're lagging. No, we're not lagging. Okay, so to repeat myself, regardless of whether anyone is or is not here, starting with the first thing out of the only two things in the title, silver prices continue to go up, finally, as they should have been doing all along, but have waited all the way up until this point with great delay to suddenly upsurge. So up to about $56 per ounce now, and that is the highest they've ever nominally been. Uh, before that, before that, the highest nominal price was like 47 or $49 or whatever, and that was back in 2011. But, and for anyone who isn't aware, as usual, go into the description under any video. You'll see this free access drive link here, which will take you to a Google Drive that I maintain, full of all kinds of different graphs and stuff that you can access for free at any time. Folders full of oil demand graphs for each country, oil production graphs, oil consumption broken down by oil product, and then similar stuff for natural gas, electricity data, population and demographics. But this time we are going to, should be under metals and mining, change in use over time, metals, mineral uses, metal mine supply. Uh, should have been there. Is it under timelines? No? Where did I put it? Economic data, maybe? Okay, yeah, it's under economic data. Inflation adjusted prices over time. So, yeah, it went up into the 40s in 2011, but in 2025 dollars, that would be equal to about 61 or $62, I believe, is what it came out to. And back in the early 80s or late 70s, it had a spike up to about $40 or $42, which in 2025 dollars would come out to close to 150. I think the exact number is like 146 or something like that. So at $56, it has broken its nominal price record, but value wise, it has not exceeded the previous ones yet. It is going to, that is coming by all means. But getting close to value wise exceeding the 2011 spike. For that, it would have to hit 61 or $62 per ounce. And then to exceed the 1980 price spike, it would have to exceed 145 or 146. So, and you can get those graphs in the drive folder or any other kinds of graphs you want. That's all there for free. Any optional support through PayPal or Patreon or any of the YouTube buttons does also obviously go to that towards the maintenance of that. But this is ongoing because I shouldn't have gone off of that because now I'm going to have to go back to it to get to the the production ones. Go back. Gotta go back. Metals and mining. Mine supply. Excuse me. Click on the folder that I'm telling you to click on. Thank you. Let me go into silver. You see silver production peaked back in 2015, and when converted to ounces, it came out to close to a billion ounces, like 993 million, and has since declined down to, or it might have been 893, and it got close up to 900 million ounces instead of in the 900s, close to a billion. I forgot which, but it's declined by over 10% since then. It looked like it was recovering a little bit a couple of years ago, but it's begun heading back down now, just at a slower rate. Meanwhile, silver demand has continued accelerating upwards, especially because of society's current obsession with solar panels, which is not the way to go, but sunk cost fallacy and everything. So, silver demand is accelerating, and also it's about to get another boom because we just found a way to make electric vehicle batteries more efficient. Guess what element uh, is now suddenly needed in these new, more efficient versions of EV batteries? And what would end up being also grid storage batteries, too. So, silver demand is about to see another balloon incident. But it's been drawn down so quickly as we keep going over the most recent years. The in the above ground inventories that are held is a rough gauge estimate worldwide, and at the height during the oversupply period that built up to its maximum in the late 2000s, early 2010s. It was 2 billion ounces in storage above ground, excess silver. That has now been drawn down to somewhere around or under 800 million and is continuing to go down quickly. And we're seeing incident panic as it's not completely like even like exactly this much percent or fraction is taken from every like big industrial storage site. They're apparently the London Stock Exchange silver storage inventories were drawn down much quicker than a lot of other places were, and they actually hit empty a couple of weeks back, and so that sent a sudden panic surge through the market that made it jump faster than it was otherwise going to, but it would still have been going upwards quickly enough. Plus, also all of the political stuff in the U.S. and uh, events ongoing around the world and upcoming events around the world are also adding investor fear, investor market panic to things that has made it do a faster jump than it might have otherwise done. Again, it should have been having like a linear upsurge or a linear climb over this amount of time as the supply demand gap continued growing, but it stubbornly hung out around the same area up until about the last year or year and a half, where it's now done a logarithmic upswing. So that is ongoing. I'm not going to close this because I might need to open it again. I'm going to learn that lesson. Let's see, do we get anybody? Yeah, we got a few. I'll just assume most people are going to end up watching the recording of this afterwards. So, hello, everybody watching it as a regular YouTube video. And the only other real thing to throw into this one is the other thing that was in the title, and that is, uh, well, firstly, we're using this bathymetric website that shows it's primarily aimed, it's like Google Earth, but specifically designed for the ocean, for showing you like exact ocean floor depictions and depths, at least in areas where we have complete accurate soundings of the ocean floor and you get high details like in the Gulf of Mexico. versus some areas like uh yeah, some areas like right out here, just a bit north of the Bahamas that are like still fuzzy. And if you go down to the Indian Ocean, you can see most of like the southern Indian Ocean is really fuzzy, except for this one random sweeping track, which is where we've been searching over the last decade for MH370. That is like in a sea of blur. There's one launch strip with the clarity and detail level that you see like right here in the middle of the Gulf. That's the strip where we've been doing seafloor searches for MH370. There's a new one ongoing at the moment. Hopefully, we'll finally come across it. But, anyways, the Department of Energy or Department of Interior just announced a sweeping new set of oil and gas leases that are going to be going off over the immediate future, the majority of which are obviously in the Gulf, in the normal portion of the Gulf where things normally are. Now, up here, close to shore off Louisiana and portions of offshore close to Texas, though not all the way up to the edge right here in Texas's case, have been explored already and are producing. So there is the batch in the middle, like past just offshore of Texas up to the slope, where there's likely to be a decent bit of natural gas alongside the oil. And then there's the bowl slope down there offshore of Texas where it's going to predominantly be oil. And exploration offshore here along this bumpy slope down is probably between probably around two-thirds of it in total area has been looked at. But the news that they were putting out is that for the first time in a while, they're going to open up exploration offshore of Western Florida on the shelf and escarpment. Now, there was some in the past, like this area here. Don't take these as exact representations, but this area here, this little patch here, this little patch here, and like another little patch here, roughly like this. There's these patches here, three that form a triangle with one big one in the middle. There's a setup like that that has been explored, and oil and gas was found there, and it has produced up until today, where there's one field that still has like I don't know 4,000 maybe barrels per day coming out of it, but it's basically depleted. So there is oil and gas off here. It is not. It is not near the prevalency that it is in the regular western portion and central portion of the Gulf, but there is stuff there. And because of uh, particularly the part, the shelf closer to Florida, because of its flatness, there is likely to be a fairly larger mix of natural gas there as well. Then once you get down to the slope here, the sloping escarpment, that's where it would transition off into predominantly being oil. I've talked about this pattern with you guys plenty by this point. Now, Florida usually does not like the idea of oil and gas exploration, and regardless of which side of the two political sides in the US controls of Florida at any given time, both actually always like file injunctions or whatever in court to stop it from happening. So there's a fair chance that's going to happen again. But in the southeastern bight offshore of the Atlantic, they're not doing anything. They did clarify that there's not going to be anything there. And stupidly, they said that they're going to open up stuff offshore of California again, despite the fact that, as you can see by the bumpiness and the straight drop offs, it's not really meant for it. And there was not a lot there. There was some that did some decent production for a bit in the 80s and then dropped off pretty quickly. And now, like that field off of Florida, is basically depleted. There's just not a lot here to find. And then back up home in Alaska, you have basically everything up to here has had stuff done in it with a few random gaps that are unowned, like in the middle, like just a few random portions that looks like a weird ghost face. A few random portions in the middle that were never bought. So they're going to be selling some of those. Maybe some more stuff back closer to here. Probably some stuff just past the river like this. Meanwhile, you have the Smith Bay field over here, which they are working on building the infrastructure to reach out to. But that's not likely to come online until 2029, I believe, is the current schedule. And it did not clarify, so I don't know for certain. Okay, I didn't mean to zoom in that far. Okay, I did mean to zoom in that far. But it looks like they are also offering stuff just offshore of the general Prudhoe Bay area, which they've only offered stuff up to 3 miles outshore before, which the oil companies have been able to produce some of the stuff out here via legal workaround of the fact that the law has stated that they can only drill up to 3 miles offshore, but they can go horizontally under the seabed after that. So up to 3 miles offshore, they have been producing from platforms that are only that far out that then horizontally reach under the seabed up to 15 miles further than that. But supposedly now they're going to offer up seafloor tracts out further than that. And there is stuff out there. There is stuff out there that was looked into before in like a general sense, but when it was initially being looked at, back in that was back in the late 2000s when oil was up in triple digits just before the global economic collapse. And then the collapse happened and it took oil prices down again with it. And so then the oil companies called that off for a while. But as things crept back up in the early 2010s, they started doing more stuff that had that came into fruition in the later 2010s. They stayed away during the later 2010s because oil prices stayed kind of low. But then, as we've gone into the 2020s with everything that's happened, they've now started doing stuff again. And even as oil prices are being kept down by a number of different factors worldwide at the moment, half of which are artificial decisions on the part of OPEC. The oil companies have continued doing stuff up home. They have continued expanding projects because uh, it's these even for being in the Arctic, these are cheaper than maintaining shale or expanding shale production. Shale, because of how played out the U.S. is at this point in terms of shale, shale now has a break-even price of needing to be over $65 per barrel, whereas the stuff back up home in the Arctic onshore only needs about between $30 and $40 a barrel. So they've continued doing stuff, especially onshore, because, $30, $40 a barrel is pretty cheap in modern standards. Offshore would jump up a bit. That would go up to more like, depending on how far offshore, that would go up to like 55 or 60. So, uh, if they are offering offshore stuff back up home, or at least on the federal government's portion of it, some oil companies might buy into it, like they might buy the tracts, but for the moment, at the current price, they're not likely to do further offshore stuff. Now, back down in the Gulf, they are still doing stuff and will do stuff in any new areas they buy because the Gulf is still fairly cheap. Even for the deeper portions, it's in the 50s in dollars per barrel, gets up to 60, but there's still, they don't have to do like the really deep portions, even though those are the only parts left that are like significantly unexplored. But they have this whole bite, we'll call it the Texas bite here, the Texas toast bite basin drop down thing that they could work into that would have cheaper, $40 to $50 per barrel prices. And then stuff offshore Florida would initially have a higher break even price because they'd have to do a lot of like subsea pipeline infrastructure setup. Because again, they only did those few things decades ago versus the immense, incomparable network that is constantly being laid and then withdrawn to the surface and scrapped, and then new stuff being laid over other stuff that's offshore of Louisiana and Texas. So, stuff offshore of Florida would initially have a higher break even price. But if it went on for a period of time, that would then drop after that as more and more stuff that was done afterwards would be able to use the previously laid infrastructure that has to first be set down. And yes, for anyone who's wondering, for environmental concerns, subsea pipelines, yes, when they are no longer used, when they're disused, they are withdrawn and disposed of, scrapped and melted down and everything. At least by most modern nations. There are some who probably won't do anything, but that's not something we can really do anything about. All right. That's the grand extent of everything, I think. Sorry if anybody who's just showing up now. Again, I've been out of it for the last couple weeks. I'm coming back into things. I'll make the electricity demand levels video tonight or tomorrow. And sorry the stream was so short, but again, not too much that I felt like addressing really happened. I mean, plenty of stuff did happen over the last week, but I'm only I only speak about stuff that I actually feel like speaking about, and that would fall into the category of stuff that I speak about. So, unless anybody has anything else they wanted, that is probably where this is going to end. So, I'll drink some more water and give things a few seconds, like 20 or 30 seconds for the stream delay, just to see if anybody had anything they wanted addressed. And the bathymetric site is in meters. If you see numbers like that 4011, it is in meters, it's not in fathoms. I know bathymetry traditionally for most of history was done in fathoms, which are 6 feet. But the numbers are in meters of depth. So, you know, before you look and see 4,000 meters there in the Gulf of Mexico and think you're looking at the Mariana Trench because you think it's 4,000 fathoms, it's just meters, I assure you. Oh, I forgot the Caymans had a trench right off them. There's the deepest portion in the Atlantic, Puerto Rico Trench, 8,648 meters. So that'd be something like 26 or 27,000 feet. And here, actually, before we end stream, we'll go take a nice detailed dive into the actual Mariana itself. There's the Mariana. It starts off shallower, then drops, starts getting deeper and deeper, then sticks around 10,000 and so. I think, yeah, there's the drop off, and it goes down kind of a quick slope. And then down here is the, why did you stop showing it? There you go. Challenger Deep right here. And yeah, the further you zoom in on this site, on areas of the ocean that have been sufficiently sounded for it, it will show you more and more detail up to a limit at least. This is 30 kilometers per inch of screen. Oh yeah, more, actually got more detail soon, but more detail still. And they flipped. The bottom one is an inch now, 10 miles, down to only 10 miles per inch of screen. And so right there, or I guess that's where they're putting the triangle, is the 10,994 over here. Where do I have to hold the mouse cursor to actually see it? That starts going up. Where's the actual... I can't pin it on the individual point. But somewhere right around here at the very end of it is where the actual 11-kilometer deep portion is. Oops, no. Further in. Do we get more? Still more, actually. All right, down to less than an inch. That's about 85% of an inch, and 4 miles over 85% of an inch. So about 5 miles per inch. And actually still has more detail. We have surveyed the trench quite a fair bit, apparently, because it is one of our areas of high curiosity. Where is the actual mega deep point? Trying to get the, see if I can get the cursor directly on it. These are all 10,500. Where's the 10,994? What about over here? That's back up over, or back up under 10. Where's the 10,994? Okay. And that's when everybody left. Understandable. All right, that's going to be it for this one. Thank you, everybody, for showing up and everything. And I'll see everybody around next time.